Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to YoungMartin'sReels. We were supposed to be getting a video on this Daiwa Procaster PM10S, and you will be seeing that video in the next couple of weeks, but I ended up having to order parts for this reel. So until the parts come in for this reel and I get it done, then I'm not going to be posting the video. Instead, we're going to be doing a video on this South Bend 30 spincast reel. I'm guessing this is from the 60s, maybe 70s, and it's in kind of rough shape. Let's see, it's very stiff, but it does turn. A little bit noisy. The button seems to click, but it doesn't seem to stay. Anti-reverse on it seems to function, although it's pretty squeaky. And we're going to see if we can take this apart. I know nothing about this reel. This is a first for us. So we're going to start off by taking the cover off. There we go. And taking a look. Yeah, it's got tangled up line down inside it. Let's see what we can do with this. Hopefully I can figure out how to get it apart. We're going to start off by taking off the rotor nut. Wow, even that was really tight going on and off. Okay. Let's take the rotor off. And this is one of the, wow, it's really got a lot of dirt inside there. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray that down with a little WD-40 and set it over to the side to soak for a while. All right, let's take a look at the spool. We're going to clip some of this excess line off of here and get it out of the picture. All right, let's take a look at what we have to do. Okay, let me change glasses because these aren't strong enough to see down inside there. All right, now let's take a look. All right, there is a wire clip right here. It appears to be one of those, all right. We've got a wire clip here that's gonna have to come out. It's gonna come across sideways here. There it is, okay. I'll take that out and set it to the side. We're gonna drop it inside that rotor so it's in there with the oil, and see if this will pull out. So far it doesn't want to. I have a feeling that this is one of these that's got to unscrew out of here. And so far I've never seen one quite like this, so let's see what we can do for it. Okay, it screws that way. Let's try turning it the other way. Okay. Okay, it seems to tighten if I go counterclockwise, so let's try to take it clockwise. And that seems to be loosening up. Loosening? Yes, it is loosening up, going clockwise. This would work better if I had a pair of needle nose pliers, I think, which I don't have a pair for the moment. Let me get a pair. All right, when I said I didn't have a pair of needle nose, what I meant is I didn't have a pair small enough to get down in there, and which they weren't. But I believe this pair will be. So we'll set those in place. Yeah. They actually fit the notch much better than what the hemostats were doing. And we're gonna rotate that around, and hopefully that's coming off. There we go. Okay, that's a threaded collar that fits down in there, and it is reverse threaded. Okay, so we'll take the spool off. Now let's take a look at what we have here. Okay. Okay, this is the drag adjust, which does not want to turn at all. No hope there whatsoever. All right, well, will this come out? Because that drag knob is completely frozen. There we go, that got that piece out. Now let's see if we can move that drag. Still nothing. Well, I may have just discovered one that I can't take apart, although I would sure hate to think that that's the truth. Okay. It's a solid body, and I'm thinking the only way we're going to get inside it is to drive this pin out. And it appears that it's going to go out the other way, but I don't know for certain. And I believe it's got to go out from this side. And once that's out, then I believe that you can get into here through the buttonhole to work on the rest of it. But I'm going to have to go off camera to try to drive this out. Okay, I'm back. This pin does drive out. And if you look, there's a spline side over here. Kind of hard to see, but there are splines on it. That's the side that you drive it out to from the handle side. Let's see if we can get that pin the rest of the way out. There we go. It's got the pin out. Now the handle will come out. All right, now if we look, we've got a nut down in here that we can probably break free there to see what we can do about getting this knob turning again. Can't get on it. Okay. All right, with that out, we should, I hope, be able to pull this out. There we go, the axle shaft come out. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done on that. And here's the anti-reverse in here. I think in order to get this out, we're gonna have to take that out, but my nut driver isn't able to fit onto the nut. So what we're going to have to do is probably get in there with a pair of needle nose pliers and try to break that free, which now that seemed to be easy enough. Okay. That unscrewed just fine there. But now can we get the knob to turn? Right now it doesn't want to budge at all. All right, let's see if we can get that knob to start moving. Oh, there we go. Okay, it moves in. Now, is it really doing anything? All right, what's supposed to happen is we rotate this knob, this shaft is supposed to turn, but it's not turning. See there? And I'm afraid if I put, this is going to be a pot metal knob or gear. If I put too much pressure on, there we go. I was afraid it would crack. There we go. All right. We now have it turning. Now let's see if we can get it to turn and let the gear come off. Not so far. All right, I'm going to set the gear back in place here so I can hit it to a lock. Okay. Oh, you know what? I think I got this figured out. I'm trying to get this to slide, to rotate. There we go. There we go. Now, there was a lot of corrosion on the center shaft. I almost put too much force on trying to turn that when it doesn't need to turn. It actually, oh. All right, well, that's interesting the way that goes together. Okay, that fits inside there and puts tension, but look at how much corrosion was inside this thing jamming it up. Okay, all right, we've got that out. Now, we're ready to take this nut off for the handle. There we go. Here's the handle off, like so. And now, how in the world are you supposed to get the gear out? It certainly doesn't look feasible for it to come out, does it? This took a long time to figure out, and it actually wasn't until I was on, I think the third or fourth time I had taken this thing apart and put it back together that I found out how to take this main shaft out. What you do is you leave your anti-reverse engaged, like it is right here, and you put your handle on. Yep, you gotta keep that held down against the anti-reverse. Don't let it slip up. There we go. So that it can actually engage. Put your handle on, and then while holding that anti-reverse engaged with your finger, go ahead and turn the handle backwards, like so, until it pops loose. And what that does, that unscrews the outboard half of the axle shaft. And then you can remove, not axle shaft, crankshaft. Then you can remove the other half of the gear. All right. And at that point, you can reach inside and take out your anti-reverse pawl. Oh, it's already out. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to clean all of this up one last time, and we are going to reassemble everything on camera. Here's the deal. I troubleshot this thing. I put it together, took it apart 4 or 5 times before I actually got the cover to stay on, the anti-reverse pawl to engage. I think that's it. Yeah, the biggest problem, was very quick to fix the cover staying on. All I did was took a small screwdriver and put it into these points right here, put those points over the corner of my board and tapped down, and it slightly distorted this. I mean, but you can't really tell, but it did slightly distort it, but it pushed each of those posts out just a little bit so that they would catch on the cover, and that took care of that. Now, the anti-reverse pawl was the real problem. I lubricated it, I unlubricated it, I did all kinds of things. Everything was seemed to be working fine, but anytime I would put it back together, if you wound the handle backwards, it tended to usually catch almost every time. But if you pulled the line out instead, it would skip. And it took me forever to figure it out. As soon as I get these parts cleaned up, I'm going to come back and explain it to you. All right, it's time to get back to work. Everything's cleaned up now and ready to assemble. And the first thing that we're going to put in is going to be our main gear with its crankshaft and anti-reverse pawl. Now, when I did this originally, it seemed that the anti-reverse was working well when I first took it apart, but it turns out it wasn't. What it was doing was it was skipping, and there was a lot of corrosion on the anti-reverse pawl. As a matter of fact, it was squeaking when I was operating it at the beginning, and so I greased it up real good, and then I put it all back together. Well, after I put it back together with the grease on it, then it seemed to skip even worse. So, that being the case, I thought, well, maybe the grease is causing the problem. So I took it all back apart, cleaned all the grease out, or as much of the grease as I could get out. Put it all back together, still didn't work. Took it apart, tried to clean it again, still didn't work. It was, I think, that 4th time that I actually managed to get the main gear out. Figured out how it came apart, and I just lucked upon that. So with that being the case, what I found was that the anti-reverse claw appeared to be stretched. And so what was happening is one side is designed to kick it over and the other side is designed to catch the lock when it comes back. And it was no longer locking on the comeback because it wasn't kicking right. So what I did is I took my vice grips and I squeezed very gently right here from end to end. When I started out, the distance on this was at 0.930, and I worked on it. I tried it at 0.925, and when I did that, it worked much better, but it was still skipping. I brought it in to 0.920, and that worked beautifully. I didn't see any more skips, but I wanted to add just a little bit extra to it. So what I did is I took it into 0.915, and when that happened, it started to catch rolling forward. So I knew I had gone too far. So I stretched it back out, brought it back out to 0.920, And that seems to work beautifully, and that's where I kept it at. And we're going to put it all back together. This time, fully functional with grease. Everything is going to be greased. I wanted all these parts greased because the water had gotten inside and there was a lot of corrosion in here. So we're going to grease everything up and put it back together. We're just putting a light coating of grease on everything. And see, I thought the grease was causing it to stick, and in reality, it wasn't. There wasn't enough grease there to be causing the problems that I was having. All right, we're going to set this in. If you look inside, right there, you will see there's a hole. All right, see the hole? All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to put this post into that hole. Which is much more difficult to do it for the camera than it is for my own eye. There we go. And once it's in that hole, then it can pivot in the hole. When you've done that, we'll take the main gear and we're going to grease it up. Okay, and on the back side, we're going to oil the shaft, and then we're going to set this part down inside, like so. Okay, drop it into the hole. All right, and make sure that it goes down to where it's actually down past the edge of the anti-reverse. With that in place, stick your finger in there and hold it in place. And now we're going to put the other half of the axle shaft in. Now the other half of the axle shaft has a flat end here, that's for the handle, and then a fully rounded end on this end. So we're going to put that back in. What I'm going to do, I don't normally, and it's not, I keep calling this an axle shaft and it's not, it is a crankshaft. Let's go ahead, and I normally do not put grease on crankshafts because it tends to slow them down. Well, on this little reel with this small handle, I don't think that's really going to matter that much. So we're going to, normally I would oil that, but I greased it this time. Okay, let's go ahead and screw that in. Now, what's going to happen is anytime you backpedal, it's going to come loose. So once we get it all together, we're going to crank on that handle a little tighter and see if we can't tighten it up so that doesn't happen. All right. The next part that we have to put in is our drag assembly. Now, this is possibly going to come, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's go ahead. Let's set the handle on and screw down the nut like so, and hopefully that will keep it from coming out enough to cause that to come loose. So we'll leave that there now. All right, the next part to go together is going to be the drag assembly. And we've got our drag adjustment gear, and it has this flat, and I don't see, you can't really see it all that well, but that's the flat. There you go. There's the flat on there, and that locks into a flat on this knob right here. All right, like so. And that allows that to turn. Now, here's the way this is going to work. We're going to put some grease on the drag shaft, this gear, like so. And we're going to set it just slightly into this hole right here. And I'll tell you what, we'll leave it out. Let's do it this way. Now we're going to take our stainless, this one appears to be stainless steel. This is a stainless steel drag knob adjuster. it's got this big spring right here. And then inside that spring goes this part. And this part seemed to be the worst of everything that I took apart. It had really corroded up pretty bad. But it is still fully functional. I cleaned as much of the rust off as I could get off in a reasonable amount of time. And then I gave it just a very light coating of grease to try to help protect it. All right. Now, we're going to set this piece onto here, on top of the spring, and kind of squeeze them together. And we're going to take this assembly now with this spring-loaded piece and set them back in. Now, what's going to try to happen is it's going to try to go in too far, so you got to watch when you go to put it in. See the hole underneath? See where my finger is underneath that hole? All right, what we're going to do is we're going to slide this down until you can see full daylight in that hole. Like so. Once you've got it like that, then you're ready to come back and install this gear. Slide that in. You might have to wiggle this around just a little bit to get it to go in. And then you're going to have to rotate the gear until that D that we showed you earlier lines up and drops through the slot. Now this part, if you don't have hemostats, this part's a lot more difficult. With my hemostats, it makes this part very simple. All I'm going to do is clamp them onto this nut. Like so, to hold it in place. And then I'm going to put my finger over the gear to hold it in place. Put the nut on and rotate it into place. Now once it's started to turn, I go ahead and take the hemostats off and I shift over to my needle nose pliers. And you can hold your thumb against the wheel to try to hold it while you tighten it down, but it's only going to go so far. Okay, that's still not tight enough. It's probably going to come loose. At one time, they had like a locking, it was a white paint that they had put on there to try to hold that nut in place. If you tighten it down good, it probably won't come off. But anyway, we're going to now install our drag assembly. And this took me a while to figure out what this part was. All right, but if you look, this part right here, let me tell you what, let's go ahead and slip this on. Then I think you can see it better. There. All right, with that on there, see how this part, this is actually a cam lobe on here. And if you look, this part over here is much wider than this side over here. All right, so when the drag is all the way over here, what you're going to have is the least amount of drag. And when you bring it around over to this side, it's going to be tightest up against our spool, and that's going to be our most amount of drag. So this knob turns like so to bring it around. And there's a positive stop right here. And there's another positive stop right here. When this one comes around, you'll see it'll hit that same post over there. There you go. That's positive stop there. It can't go any further. Well, once you turn this to that position right there, now you can take your needle nose and tighten that nut down the rest of the way. Now it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, and your drag. See how easy it moves now compared to what it did before? Helps to have all that corrosion out. All right, we're going to put it into this position, which is your least amount of drag, prior to putting our spool on. Here's our spool. If you look at the bottom of the spool, there is a shouldered area right there. Let's see, and put it behind my hand. See that shouldered area? Okay, that is going to drop down inside our drag assembly, and this spring right here is going to ride against that. Now, the more this rotates this way, the tighter it's going to push that spring against that shoulder, and that's going to tighten your drag. All right, and if you look also, there is a clicker cog right over here, and this is not something you want to remove. This is staked in. They put that over those posts and then they hammered them down. So this should never come out. So don't try to take it out. All right, we're going to take this spool now, and we're going to slip it in here. Hold it down. All right, and it's just going to sit there for the moment. And now goes this piece back in. And remember, this is reverse clockwise and anti-clockwise. Counter, there we go. This is counterclockwise, means it goes the opposite direction that the face of a clock does. No, it's not a digital. So, all right, let's tighten this down. We're going to turn it to the left. And when it gets all the way down, it's going to hit like a positive stop. It doesn't just tighten until it doesn't tighten anymore. It's going to actually hit a positive stop. Once it hits that positive stop, you know you're there. If it kind of tightens down until it just seems like it can't go any tighter, but doesn't hit a positive stop, you're not down. It's caught on the edge of the spool. I know because I've done that twice. So. And if it's not down all the way, it doesn't reveal the slot. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. Again, I'm getting it caught. There we go. Now you got to make sure when you tighten this down with a pair of needle nose that you don't over tighten this, or you don't squeeze in on the needle nose. Because if you do, you'll be dragging against the threads and that'll tear them up. You have to hold the needle. There you go. There's the positive stop. See, it hits right there and it's done. Just like that. Now when it hits that, when you look, you will see here on the top side, away from the foot, you will see that there's a slot. Let's come in close. And hopefully I'll remember to come out of close when we go to put the next part in. All right, there's the slot that this D spring goes into. If you take this and slide it into that slot, the straight end of it, goes into the slot. I've got to try to, I dropped it. Okay. Okay, we're going to slide the straight end into that slot, and then the D end of it just wraps right around, just like that. All right. That's how that goes in. If you look down inside, well, it's not installed properly because you should be able to see it. Let's take a look. There, should show like that. Apparently there's a little piece of debris catching right here at this corner, keeping that from going all the way flat. And this side over here isn't all the way down either. It should come all the way to the end of the slot. You know what I think's happened? I think I have put this on and off so many times that I've sprung the spring. And that's going to cause problems with the, yeah. When I first started, the gap on the end of this was almost exactly together. So I have sprung it just slightly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab hold of it here at the corner like this, and I'm going to bend that D in a little bit. Like that. That's how it should be. Okay, so now let's reinstall it. Okay, we're going to set the flat edge against there, like so, and then gently pull the D around, like so. And now when you look inside there, you definitely see the spring sticking across. Now, what happens is, let's bring this back out now. Now we're going to install this axle shaft. Now the axle shaft, you have to, and this really is the axle shaft, no matter what I called the crankshaft a while ago, this is the axle shaft. We're going to grease the axle shaft, grease up along the spring where it pushes in and out. And we're going to come back and oil the axle shaft. Now we're going to slide it into the hole right here. Now it's only going to go so far and it's going to kind of stop. And the reason it is because it's hitting that spring. So if you put your finger gently against it, far enough, is we're going to have to gently, ever so gently, hook the end of the spring while I'm pushing in on it. I was hoping that just rotating it would turn it, but it's not. Okay, so ever so gently, we're going to move that spring over while pushing in on the gear. And you got to get it to mesh with the other gear at the same time. There. Took a bit. I got to go past the spring. Once it's past the spring, it's fine. It'll slide easily. Okay, we're going to, just to make sure that it doesn't fall out, we're going to go ahead, put the rotor on. And now, we'll tighten it down. And at the same time, we'll tighten down this nut. All right. Now we're going to hold the rotor tight, and we're going to crank on the handle. And you'll feel it give that little bit as that crankshaft tightens down inside the shaft. Once it does, you've got positive lock on your anti-reverse. All right. Now there is a little bit of eek, eek, eek in here, and what that is this rotor is just slightly out of round, and I'm not going to spend any time trying to tighten that, but it's catching against the edge of the spool. All right, now you can manually push this in with your finger, and it will lock. And when you turn it, it'll drop back down. That spring is catching in that slot that's in the middle of the crankshaft, or axle shaft. All right, and then when you rotate it, it pops down out of there, like that. Now, we're going to put a little bit of grease on the pivot points for this button, and a little bit on the back where it slides against the button, or the axle shaft. Then we're going to slide this back in. Bottom goes in first, and bring the top up. Bring it in until the hole lines up. And then you might have to wiggle around a little bit to get it to line up. There we go. There it goes in the first hole. You'll know when it goes into the second. Don't try to hammer it down into that second hole because you'll bust it. You have to wiggle it till it goes. Okay, then once you've got it started in the hole right here, and you can see that it started in the hole, all right, then you can gently tap it down. I just use my, there. And that's all it takes for that to hold. Now your button should be fully functional, and it is. All right, the next thing we're going to try to do is get hold of the line and pull it out. Okay, we've got the line. Pull some out. Push it through. All right, remember what I said. We dented these back in a little bit so that they would grab hold of the cover because they weren't. And here's a little short video of what it was doing before. Uh-oh, our anti-reverse isn't holding. Actually, neither is our cap. Our cap is only going so far, and then there we go. Okay, but there's, okay, now we've got the drag locked. Okay, let's see. I'm going to adjust this cap a little bit. Yeah, that's, we're going to have to adjust this in. Okay, and we'll slide those in, turn them, lock them, like so. The handle is turned. We should have positive on the drag. There we go. Now, as we tighten the drag, it should get tighter. And it did. And I've got some grease on the knob, so let's get that off. Tighten it down some more. And it's really tight. Okay. So you can tighten it all the way till it won't drag out at all. There's our anti-reverse working. And let's blow this back out. So, there we go. Hit the button. And now, this is definitely in need of some new line. But aside from that, this reel is ready to go. And it's getting its second chance. So, there you have the South Bend 30 spincast reel, torn down, repaired, lubricated, reassembled, and ready to go. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit the like button. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button. Tell me what you didn't like about it. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. For now, that's Rick Stivers with the Young Martin's Reels, signing out.